Hello and welcome to Compliance Wire series of webinars by Complinity, India's leading compliance software. I'm Sumit Pahwa. I'm a company secretary, corporate lawyer with 20 plus years of experience on the employment side, on the practice side. And for the last 5.5 years, I'm associated as a co-founder CEO with Complinity, which is India's leading compliance software. That's a brief about me. About Complinity, Complinity has more than 500 plus companies and 10,000 plus users who are using Complinity today. The flagship being the Complinity compliance software of the likes of Max Hospital, Artemis Hospital, Hindware, British Council, Jai Bharat Maruti, Yes Bank, Oberoi Hospital, Hospitality, etc., etc. So 50 plus industries across all over India are using Complinity compliance software, which is India's leading compliance software. We have started coming up with now regular webinars on important compliance topics, and allow me to welcome Mr. Amit Chaurasia. Amit, you're there? Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, Amit, can you raise your volume a little bit?
No, it is it audible now?
Yeah, it's audible. Okay. Hi, Amit. Welcome to Complinity's compliance webinar. And just to introduce Amit, Amit Chaurasia is the company secretary of JK Lakshmi Cement Limited, which is a very large listed company into several businesses. He's a fellow company secretary and a lawyer with over 20 years of rich experience in corporate laws, fundraising, compliances, legal affairs, corporate governance, and specifically on the topic today, that is in developing and maintaining compliance management systems in several organizations. Amit is a dear friend too. I know him for 20 years, and we were doing law together 20 years back. And Amit is a very thorough professional, if I may say so. That was his professional introduction, but how I know him personally is very, very thorough professional, goes into detail, into depth, and he's very sort of passionate about compliances and compliance management systems. And he is, by the way, associated with us in his earlier organization, also as a client to Complinity, where he was, a very, very difficult client, let me say so, very, very demanding client. Yes. So that's a little bit introduction about the speaker, Amit. Welcome again to Complinity and the webinar. Okay. Now, today's topic is developing and maintaining compliance management systems. Before we do that, again, we have a poll, but that's later, and we have a good number of people now have joined in. Can you just, one governance here. Something that you need to just share, put it in the chat box. You see a chat box at below the screen, and something that you need to ask a question, put it in the Q&A box. So the structure of the presentation will be such that this is 12:08. I will hand over the mic to Amit at 12:10. Amit will give a presentation for about 30 minutes. He's prepared a very nice, deep presentation. And then we'll sort of do a Q&A, last 15-20 minutes Q&A. Open session, Q&A, conversations, interesting insights, etc., etc. So anytime a question occurs to you, please put it in the Q&A box. Anything you need to really just share, or for example, if I nudge you to share something, please put it in the chat box. That's a little bit of governance you need to maintain. It's like, dry waste, wet waste, okay, on a lighter note. Okay, so in the chat boxes, if you could just signal to us, how many of you have used compliance software, any compliance software, used, implemented, etc., etc. Just keep putting in stray remarks in the chat box. It'll give us some idea. You could post to everyone, you could post to host panelists, whatever. Please put something that anybody who has used a compliance management system. Yes. Okay. So somebody's saying no, yes, no, yes. Okay. So that gives energy to the speaker that yes, there are live participants. We can't hear you, but we can see you, your remarks coming in, and we get a okay. Pooja says great HR, which is primarily a payroll software. So I think compliance software is slightly different. Yes, of course. Okay, so Amit, while people are still writing, but yes, you have, I think, I think it's a 50-50 split
Yes.
between no's and yes. So the number of participants that you see, and we see a 50-50 looks like if that's a sample of the whole participants, people who use it. Okay, so over to you, Amit. You can share your slides, and over to you for the next 30 minutes. Anxiously waiting to learn your experiences of developing and maintaining and implementing these compliance management systems. Yes.
Thank you, Sumit. Thank you for the introduction, and I thanks to the Complinity and particularly to you for giving me an opportunity to share my experience and whatever the little knowledge I have on the developing and maintaining a legal compliance management system. Very important topic you have selected, and at a very right time, where we see most of the newspaper, you must be seeing a lot of penalties are imposed, even the big corporates like Reliance and all that, where the officials are exposed to heavy penalties. So where the role of the compliance management tool comes into picture, which is very important. I'm just sharing my presentation. Just allow me. Is it visible now?
Yes, Amit, we can see your screen.
Yeah. So we can start with the presentation. As friends, good afternoon to all of you once again. As we know, the topic is developing and maintaining a compliance management system. So straight away, let us go to the next slide. Legal necessity. Now let us understand what is the legal necessity. Of course, the value added advantages we know, which we will discuss later on in the slide. But let us first understand, are there any legal necessity to go for a legal compliance management system? At least I found 8 reasons in the company law as well as in the SEBI listing regulation. The first reason is, if you see the director responsibility statement, where the directors have to confirm that the company is maintaining proper systems, mind the language, proper systems to ensure compliance with the provision of all applicable laws, and that such systems are operating effectively and adequately. See the language used. Directors have an onerous responsibility to confirm in their director's responsibility statement. The next role is where I find a reason functions of a company secretary. The company secretary is responsible to report to the board of directors about the compliance of the Companies Act as well as all the laws applicable to the company. Now, this becomes again very important that legal compliance management system is not only restricted to the Companies Act, but all the laws applicable to and where the functions of the company secretary come into picture, and he has to report to the board. The third point is the role of the board of directors. If you see in the listing regulations, the board of directors shall periodically review compliance reports pertaining to all laws applicable to the listed entity, prepared by the listed entity, as well as the steps taken to rectify the non-compliances, if any. Now, so the board has a responsibility to review all the laws applicable. Now, from where all the laws will applicable, how the company will come to know, it is from the legal compliance management system, which is very comprehensive in nature. Next, important obligation before the board, where the company has to place a minimum information about instances of the non-compliance of any statutory or regulatory matter. Now, how you will come to know? One is, of course, in a traditional way, there is a reporting from the plant, from the office, and one is through the system itself. You will come to know that, yes, there is a non-compliance, there is a regarding a regulatory non-compliance, which you have to place before the board of directors. Now, many of the companies are subject to sectoral audit, meeting a threshold. Even in the sectoral auditor report, he has to mention that there are adequate systems and processes. Please listen the words carefully. Systems and processes in the company commensurate with the size and operations of the company to monitor and ensure compliance of all the applicable laws, rules, regulations, and guidelines. So again, here the role of systems comes into the picture. You have to give a comfort to your secretarial auditor ki yes, there are adequate systems and procedures are in place. Role of the audit committee. If you see the section 177 of the Companies Act and listing regulation, the audit committee has to evaluate the internal financial controls and the risk management system. Now, as we know, today the non-compliance is the biggest risk, and the legal risk is also there. So how the system of the legal compliance is evaluating in the company? There is the role of the audit committee which has to discharge. Now, in the last 1 year, the role of the even risk management committee has been enlarged, and risk management committee, one of the role under the listing regulation is to ensure that appropriate methodology, processes, and systems, again, I am emphasizing the word systems, are in place to monitor and evaluate risks associated with the business of the company. And last but not the least, if I say in the in terms of the legality, you have to, the listed companies have to prepare the corporate governance report. And one of the part of the corporate governance report is a management discussion analysis, where you have to mention about the risk and concern and the adequacy of the internal control system. Well, friends, if you study the MDA report of the good corporates, of the reputed corporates, you will always seldom you will find that the companies are mentioning about their legal compliance management. At least I can comment on, you can study the Jubilant Pharma, Jubilant Invivia, JK Lakshmi Cement. We always mention about the legal compliance management system. So this is the 8th reason, at least I can gather from the act and the regulation, where there is a real necessity to have legal compliance management system. Moving to the next slide. Now, we have two types of system. One is the traditional system, which of course many of the companies, when I was looking into the poll, some people are not using it, legal compliance management system. I don't say it is not a system, it is a system. Certain disadvantages associated with the traditional system. Now let us first understand what is the traditional system. There are Excel-based compliance checklists, Word-based compliance checklist, paper-based compliance checklists. So those companies which are not using the new age system or the technology system, they're using the Excel-based, paper-based checklist, which I feel that is a paper-based, and the report certificates are prepared manually. So this is a system. I'm not saying it is not a system, it is a system. Now let us understand what are the disadvantages of this traditional system, which, if I say in other words, it's an advantages of a new system. Now, what are the disadvantages? Somebody who has drawn the Excel-based compliance checklist, that laws may not be outdated. He may not have updated the system because he didn't have an opportunity. He may or may not, but most of the probabilities he may not have updated the laws. As I mentioned in my first point, he may have updated it, but it is not updated on a real-time basis. Checklists may be limited in scope and may not be comprehensive due to limitation of the format. In the checklist, you must have mentioned that yes, you have done the compliance on a particular date, but it is not backed by any proof, any attachment. Checklists and reports are prepared manually, as we know, which is a time consuming, and the dissemination of information to the leadership team is delayed. So because you get the reports from the plant, you compile it, then you summarize the data. So there is a time gap involved, and the leadership is not getting information on a real-time basis. You have 10 different offices, 10 factories, but the different 10 factories are using a different format. It may be possible. At least I have seen in some companies, yes, this practice is there. So there is no standardization of formats of the checklist. Now, once you receive the checklist, you have received it. Suppose you have a 10 factories or a 10 offices, you have received the 10 kind of papers. But on a global basis, on a consolidated basis, you may not be having a data on a click of button. You have to compile it manually, calculate the score, aggregate the numbers, and then you come to know that what is the compliance status for the company as a whole. Whereas in the legal compliance management system, you can, on a click of a button, you can find a location-wise data, function-wise data, or even with the company-wise data as a whole. As it is a paper-based system, you can see it consumes a space and the logistic cost to store the historical manual data of compliance, because you have to, as per the archival policy, you have to store your compliance reports. You may never know that tomorrow there is a non-compliance in the company, and you want to plug the reason why it is a non-compliance has happened. So you have to store the papers. And last but not the least, historical compliance data may not be readily available because it is stored at different places, different stores. So you have to spend the time, and it is not available. So I feel what disadvantages I have mentioned you, these are, if you converse it, it becomes an advantages of having a legal compliance management system. Now, let us understand, once we decide internally, okay, let us move from the traditional system to a new age system, how to kickstart the process, because that is my topic, is developing and maintaining, how to develop it. The first very step after taking an internal approvals from your top leadership team, constitute a compliance level committee, which should comprise of representatives from the various core functions of the organization. The functions includes HR and admin, logistics, IT, direct access, indirect access, secretarial, legal, regulatory heads, international business. So you should identify which are your functional heads, and they should come together and constitute a committee which will look after the implementation of this project. The next step is, once you have constituted a committee, designate a secretary to the committee or a coordinator for the project. He is a very, very important person in this entire system when you are going to implement a system, because he will act as a vital link between the company and your system vendor, as well as oversee the implementation of the system. So he's a very important person. You have to very carefully select who is the person going to be the committee secretary to the committee or the coordinator for the project. I will use the word interchangeably, secretary or coordinator, but it is one and the same thing. The next important step which you have to take, if you have multiple offices or multiple factories, designate each person at each location who will be interacting with the secretary or the coordinator of the project, because it is humanly impossible for the secretary or the coordinator to interact with the various persons at each location. So it is like a federal structure, one at the center at the corporate level, one at the unit level. So designate a person who will coordinate on behalf of that unit. Now, once you have done this exercise, you from the market make a study and try to invite 2 to 3 reputed vendors, or maybe 4, 5, depending on the mandate which you have got it, for the demo of their product. So you will contact the vendors. Vendors will fix a time with your compliance committee and fix a time for the demo of the product, because the demonstration of the product is very important at this stage. Organize the demo. Once you have fixed the time, organize the demo with the committee members and try to involve your CEO, if not possible, at least CFO and whole-time director operations, because they are very, very important person to take the decision which software to go for. Once you have taken the demo and you have got the look and feel of the software vendor, you have to take the next step to finalize the vendor. But before finalizing the vendor, you have to share your general business and operation details, which is not confidential in nature, to the vendor, so that the vendor can work upon what kind of quote he has to give and what kind of technical and commercial quotation you have to receive it. So he will give a predefined Excel checklist, because every vendor has a predefined Excel template where you have to fill the data of your unit, how many workers you have, what kind of operations you are carrying on each location, in which state the offices are located or factories are located, because it will help the vendor to work out how much time is going to be involved in implementation of the project, as well as what are the commercial involved. Once you have shared the data and vendor has worked upon that, you will receive the bids or the commercial and the technical quotations from the vendors, that if X vendor has to go for implementation of the project, what will be the commercial and what will be the technical. Technical here, I mean, what are your IT infrastructure requirement you need to have to implement that software. Now, once you have received the bids, suppose you have received from the 3 or 4, make a comparative analysis of your bids. Please keep in mind, while making a comparative analysis, make sure whether the vendor has a regulatory expertise or the regulatory domain expert of the industry which you belong. Suppose you are in the aviation industry, whether the vendor has an aviation law expert, or you are in the pharma industry, whether vendor has a pharma, because there may be 2 types of vendors. One vendor is, he has a general law expert, and one vendor is who has an expert vendor, expert on the laws of the industry of which you belong, because that will play a very, very important role in developing your checklist. As well as you should also look for who are the reputed clients of your vendors, so that you can take a feedback from those clients. When I was going for an implementation in Jubilant, I shortlisted 2 to 3 vendors, and I spoke and I take a reference from the vendors of their clients, and I spoke on a one-to-one basis, and I took the feedback and I have mentioned in my analysis, because this feedback is going to be analyzed by your committee members, because you have to present the evaluation. Once you have done the evaluation of the vendors, present the same to the committee, including the clients, the feedback, so that the committee members and your CEO and CFO is able to take a decision which vendor to be shortlisted. So basis your evaluation, once you have shortlisted, say X vendor, execute the purchase order with the agreement or agreement with the vendor, and if possible, try to fix your payment terms on a milestone basis, like on the receive of the checklist, on the live of the, once the vendor will make a live 1 month or 2 months after the product is become live, so that there are milestone payments. Both parties are in a win-win situation. I hope you understand this. Now, once you have finalized the vendor, say we are vendor X, what are the next steps involved? The next step is the first bullet point, which you can see. The shortlisted vendor generally share the list of laws applicable to the organization. How he will share? Because you have already shared at the preliminary stage your nature of operations, or the nature of locations. So he will make a list of laws which will be shared with the client. Once you receive the list of laws, present it to your committee members, to your functional head. These are the, say, 100 laws which, as per the vendor, are applicable to the company, and take the sign off of your committee members. It may be possible there may be 102 or it may be 98. Your functional head is a more in a what should I say, in at expert place where they can mention that no, this law is not applicable, or in addition to 100 there are 2, 3, 4 or 5 laws or more applicable. So you add on that laws or delete the laws and give your feedback to the vendor. Basis your feedback, the vendor will finalize the draft laws. These are the laws, and on the that basis, vendor will start working the draft checklist for your company location wise, because you have already shared in which locations, what kind of operations are going on. So vendor will prepare the checklist and share the checklist with coordinator of the project. Once you have received the draft checklist, disseminate that checklist with the corporate office representative. In the corporate office, you have a different function like HR, admin, taxation. Same way, you have your units, you have offices, you have sites. So disseminate those location-wise checklists to the coordinator of those sites, which if you remember, in the first slide I mentioned, who is the point of coordination at the location. What they have to do, once you have received the checklist, what are the next steps? You have to fill the name of the persons and their email IDs against each line compliance line item. Because once you receive a checklist, it's a very comprehensive document which contains of thousands or 500, 600, depending on the number of offices or the locations, how many compliance line item. Against each line item, you have to fill at least basic details of the names of the persons who are responsible for the compliance. Now, if you see the person responsible for the compliance, some vendors say owner, some vendors says it is auditee, some vendors say maker. It is like a maker checker. These are the persons who are responsible for the compliance. So in the name, in the column, you have to fill their name as well as their email ID. Now, the next party is reviewer, auditor, or checker. They are the persons who review the compliances which are reported by the owner, auditee, maker in the system. They have to approve it. So you have to fill their name as well as their email ID also. Now, in some of the companies, particularly the manufacturing company, I have experienced, there are 3-stage approval is involved. So ultimately, it is the site head or the manufacturing head. He will give the approval that yes, whatever the compliance reported by auditee in the system, approved by the auditor, is finally approved by me. Because you know, in the factory side, it is the factory manager who is, the factory head is generally, he's the factory manager, and ultimately he is responsible for all the industrial and labor laws of the company. Along with these 3 details, if possible, map the functional heads at corporate office or head office for each compliance, including compliance of your unit as well as offices. I will tell you the reason why I am saying this in the next slide. While finalizing the above details of the owner, auditee, reviewer, approver, please also review the following points thoroughly at the time of finalizing the checklist, because this is very critical stage, very, very important stage. Your system success depend on how seriously you review the checklist at this stage, how seriously you review the name of owner, a reviewer, approver. Now, functions and departments, because when the vendor share its checklist, they, with their own list understanding, give the name of the function or the department against a compliance. But as per your organization structure, you have to see whether this name of the department is correct or not. If it is not, then rectify it. Attachment proof of compliance. Make sure that this is uniform across all the functions, all the laws of the organization. If I tell you my experience, in my previous company, there was a distorted checklist. At one location, for say HR, payment of wages and compliance, somewhere at X location, the attachment proof of payment of wages, it is mandatory. And in other location, Y location, the proof of payment of wages, it is optional. Now, I used to find a very difficult, find very difficult while reviewing the compliances. So you have to ensure, you have to take into confidence your vendor that attachment proof of compliance, wherever it is mandatory, it should remain mandatory across the organization. Wherever it is optional, it should remain optional across the organization. I will tell you the advantages of this, why I'm emphasizing on these points. Same way, frequency of compliance, because some compliances which are of statutory payment in nature or filing of return, of course, their frequency, neither vendor can disturb it nor organization can disturb it. It has to be as per the law. But there are certain procedural compliances, like there has to be an adequate light at the shop floor. I'm just giving an example. There have to be a spittoons in the factory. It is a procedure, maintaining registers and record. The frequency of compliance of those units have to be uniform across the organization. This is a difficulty I also faced, where we, along with the Complinity, we did a lot of exercise and we come at finally we were successful at the end of the day. Now, after doing this, you have to decide the escalation matrix or alert days for each compliance. Why escalation matrices? Please understand, escalation matrix is like reminding of the compliances to the owner, like in the company secretarial department. Somebody is responsible for filing of the form with the ROC. Somebody is responsible for filing with the stock exchange. Now, depending on the compliance, who is the owner or the auditee, which I have explained you in, who is responsible for that compliance. So decide the number of days before which, the due date before which he will receive the alert. Okay, this compliance is approaching. I have to submit this compliance. So it will act like, it will have two advantages. First, it will give a reminder to the person, complete the compliance on the ground, file the return, give the intimation to the stock exchange. And second is that in the system, you have to report the compliance. So 10 days in advance before the due date, which is fixed in the system, owner will get an alert. This compliance is approaching. Now, it may be possible that because of your preoccupation or you still have a time, you are preoccupied, you are not able to attend the compliance for next 3 days. Then a second level escalation will go to your checker or to your head that this compliance is already becoming due, it is approaching. Please advise your owner, maker to report the compliance in the system. So it's kind of a more, you are making a system more robust. And this, mind you, 10, 7, 3 days, which I have mentioned, it is just, it's a suggestion. It all depends on your organization, what days you advance, how many days you agree with your vendor. It can be modified also. In my previous stint, this was the escalation matrix. That's why I have written it. Now, suppose even after 7 days, till 3 days, you are not able to report the compliance in the system. Then the final approval, in the case of factories or unit, an alert will go. Only 3 days are left. The concerned owner auditee has not reported the compliance in the system. This kind of a system will give an alarm to the unit head. Okay, either the compliance has not been done or it has been done, but it has not been reported in the system. And let me tell you, friends, even if you are doing the compliances on ground but not reporting in the system, it is as good as actually in a non-compliance, because it will flash a data at the end of the period when your compliance officer review, and then there will be a lot of emails exchanged why data is not been reported. So this is how it is. And once, even if 3 days have passed by and system has crossed the due date of the compliance, suppose the compliance date was 5th of September, until 5th of day, you have not reported the compliance in the system, an alert will go to your compliance officer at the corporate office or to your CFO or all to your whole-time director, depending on which person you have mapped in your that the compliance have become an overdue. It will raise an alarm at the corporate office level, and necessary mails will go to the concerned person that please submit the compliance. Either you tell me the reason whether you have not done the compliance or you have done the compliance but not reported in the system. Now, post submission of compliance, same way, when the owner submit the compliance, a reminder will go to the auditor. When auditor approve in the system, it will go to the final approver in the case of a manufacturing unit to approve the compliance. The parties at A and B, once post, they have an option to reject. Many tools provide that suppose they feel that the system has not been reported properly, they can reject the compliance, and again it will go back to the owner auditee with the remarks of the person who have rejected, please submit the system compliance properly. Now I have here one suggestion to all the persons. If any non-compliance is reported, suppose some owner, auditee or maker has reported non-compliance, not complied, an alert should immediately go to the compliance officer at the corporate office or final approver at the plant or functional head so that timely corrective actions can be taken. Because once an owner submit the compliance, reviewer has an option to either approve or reject the compliance. And it may be possible compliance has actually been done, but inadvertently it has been reported not complied, or he is not aware of the full knowledge and inadvertently he has reported not complied, but actually it is complied. So that is why this alert plays an important role at that stage, so that at the end of the day, when the compliance is finally approved in the system, at least you have saved the damage. You have to also map the one-time compliances like certificate of incorporation, consent to establish. You have to give just one date while finalizing the checklist that yes, this is a date, so that this compliance will come only once in the lifetime of the tool. Now, while finalizing the system, there are certain issues which you will face, or the persons who have already implemented, how to map event-based compliance, like issue of right shares, bonus shares, accidents in a factory. These are event-based compliance. If event happen, you have to report. If event doesn't happen, you need not to report. Now, there are two ways of handling this. One option is keep them as a running compliance with a predefined frequency, which will appear whether event has happened or not, irrespective of the happening of event. Now, what is the downside of this? Downside is your compliance burden will increase of reporting in the system. Now, you have a second option. Option is some tools give a option of triggering the event. Like suppose a company secretary in the department, the secretarial department knows my rights issue is board has approved the rights issue, or my board has approved the owner's bonus shares. You will trigger on the bonus shares, and all the compliances relating to the bonus shares will start appearing with a predefined frequency. So I feel this approach is more scientific in nature, but user have to be made aware thoroughly about the functionality of the system. Because unless and until you don't trigger it, this compliance will not appear on your home page, compliance page, and the compliance will be missed. Some system also provide a feature that a mail confirmation during a particular period is sent to the owners, confirm whether events have taken place or not. So it is kind of a reminder to the owners that there are certain events loaded in your system. Please ensure those events have not taken place. Some systems even also allow to generate a compliance certificate with a confirmation that specified events have not taken place. So the unit head who is giving the certificate, at least is aware while giving the certificate which is generated for the system that events have not taken place, or if event has taken place, he will give the direction to his employees to please generate the event and report the compliances.
Amit, I'm conscious of the time, so just wanted to alert you. Try and wrap up in 5-7 minutes because there are some questions coming up in the Q&A box as well. So
I'm going fast.
All right.
Yeah. Now there are certain compliances which are based on a multiple assets functions in the same unit, like you have 5 boilers, 4 vehicles, 6 lifts in a single unit. How to map the compliances? Because there is always a unique compliances map. Now, if there is option one is you map the multiple compliances depending on your number of, suppose you have 5 boilers, map the 5 line items in the compliance tool. Second option is you insert a field in your compliance tool against a particular line item that unless and until you do not fill the number of assets, the system will not close, and the number should be 1 or higher. but user must be made aware thoroughly about the functionality of the system to make it more robust. Choice depends on you how to make it. Options are available. Conclusion, compliances should not be missed from reporting in the system. Same way, people sometimes struggles about the condition of the licenses and approval. Same approach, either you can map one general compliance that all the conditions, all the laws of the my licenses approvals have been complied with. There is a one line item, you will approve it, okay. And the second option is break down the condition of each license approval, unique compliances, and each compliance condition have to be approved in a system like in a normal manner. Again, the mantra is compliances should not be missed from reporting in the system. So options are available. You have to explore with your vendor. Now there are three, you have to also do the risk categorization. There are generally three types of risk: high, medium, low. Generally, we recommend high: suspension of license or imprisonment or fine above a threshold. Say you decide above 1 lakh, risk is high. It is just a recommendatory figure. You can decide 5 lakh, you can decide 50,000. Then you have a medium risk below the 1 lakh but above a particular threshold, say 50,000. So between 1 lakh to 50,000, it is my medium risk. And then you can decide less than 50,000, it is my low risk. So figures are in your hand. You have to decide in consultation with your vendor. So once you have done this exercise, you are good to go and give your checklist to your vendor to take next course of action. Now, how does the compliance page look like? Many people who have a compliance tool, they are aware about this, but many people who are not, it gives you a general feature of the compliance. When you are compliance page, sorry, first of all, I should tell what is compliance page. Compliance page is a page where you have to report the compliance in the system. So it gives you information about unique compliance ID, compliance act name, compliance relevant section, description of the compliance attachment, whether it is mandatory, optional, relevant form number, due, what is the due date and actual date of compliance, location, department, what are the internal guidelines, procedure to comply, what is the category, whether it is displaced compliance, register, penalty, risk, history of compliance, in past what you have written, helpline number. If you are finding it difficult, you can contact the vendor. What is your approval hierarchy, which I have explained you in the previous slides, and the remarks, comments. Same way, you have to see the dashboard also. So there is a difference between a compliance page and dashboard. Dashboard is generally the home page of your tool where you can find various options, features. Like suppose you are a big company and you have a 3-4 listed companies or 3-4 operating companies. You want to implement the tool in all the companies. So the dashboard gives you a feature that from the drop-down list, select a company for which you want to submit the compliance or you want to review. So it has an option to select the company. What are your compliances due in the current one? To-do list. What are the options for the period? So which period you want to review from the compliance tool about the compliances, the pie chart, the graph status of compliances, the location wise, company wise, legislation wise. You can have a graph for the graphical presentation. Tabs for status of compliances, like whether it is complied, how many are complied, how many are not complied, complied with exception, not complied, overdue compliances. Snapshot of licenses. Suppose you have uploaded the licenses, how many are valid applied, deemed expired and applied, not updated. You can generate the reports from the dashboard, whether in the PDF or Excel, and you have a user manual to operate the system, search, contact us information. You can write an email to your vendor that I'm finding a difficulty. You can please help me out. So these kind of features are available. Now, once you have given the compliance checklist and you have become familiar with this page, you have to do the testing before making the live. So vendor will integrate the checklist in the system. It will upload on your client server. Vendor will make it live on a dummy basis because you have to test whether the checklists are working properly or not. You have to give a training to your users with a designated and with the help of the vendor. The login ID and password of the users will be created by the vendor, which will be distributed to the users. So user will start reporting the compliance in the system on a dummy basis to know whether the system is functioning properly. You have to review the functioning of the system. You should generate the reports, test whether compliances due dates are correctly appearing, whether frequency is okay, whether attachment is okay. You have to review both Excel-based download reports as well as the system. Then Whatever the shortcomings are there during this testing stage, please share your feedback with the vendor so that vendor can take appropriate actions and remove the deficiency. Again, check the system after the deficiencies have been removed before making the live, and still if there are some nitty-gritties, please sort it out with the vendor. Last but not the least, at this stage, give an administrator rights to the person at the corporate office. Like I was the administrator in the Jubilant. I used to have a multiple rights of making the users, making the inactive users, making the active users, changing their email ID, reviewing the compliance data for the company as a whole, download the reports. Same way at each location, the concerned person of the location wise will have a data to see the system so that he can chase up with the people who are not uploading the compliances, who are not. So he has a right limited to that system only, but his rights is limited compared to the administrator at this corporate office level. Now, this is the last stage. Once your system is live, you should also review it time to time so that it attains a maturity, and once it has attained the maturity, it remains sustainable. The central administrator, designated person at the corporate office, and the local administrator at the unit office, he will review the system on a daily basis, chase the people, please close the compliance, because overdue compliances are not good or not healthy sign for this company, because it shows that people are not taking the system seriously. Check whether compliances are reported properly or not. Some compliances may be reported complied, but actually not complied, or vice versa. If possible, explore with the vendor the use of artificial intelligence in case you have a paucity of time or the resources. Prepare a presentation of the compliances which you have reviewed. Make a presentation for your presentation to be given to your compliance committee periodically so that they came to know what is happening at the ground level, and also provide a presentation to your risk committee and the audit committee. Give a snapshot that how many compliances during a quarter were reported, complied, how many not complied, so that your risk management committee or audit committee is able to discharge the functions which are enshrined in the listing regulation and the Companies Act. If possible, obtain a system-based compliance certificate from the concerned person in each location, which is addressed to your compliance head, CFO, whole-time director, depending on your organization structure, basis which a consolidated compliance certificate will be placed before the board. There is one my suggestion. Please use the language in the board certificate as compliances have been materially complied. Don't write it, all the compliances have been complied with. This is my experience. My board refused to accept the certificate because it may be possible there may be a technical or trivial non-compliances, and whereas you are giving a clear compliance certificate. So it's kind of a false certification, but here materially complied will save your skin. In parallel, you prepare a small templates of your units, offices, and Excel based, and obtain their labor law EHS information, which will help you to understand, to review the compliances, like how many workers are employed in your unit, whether apprentices are employed, what is the payment of wages rate. This will help you to review the system when you are reviewing the compliances from the system. Get the weekly, monthly, quarterly legal updates from the systems vendor along with the relevant notification. Escalate to your concerned user so that they are aware of the legal changes. If agreed by the management, this is very, very important. Get the compliance tool periodically audited by a third party, maybe once in 3 years. Have a cross-functional audit so that whether there are gaps in the checklist, whether there are gaps in the system, place that report which you get it from the third party to your audit committee or risk management committee and take corrective action. Modify your HR processes of relieving of employee. Because sometimes what happens, I have practically seen this, a user is responsible for compliance, he leaves the organization and the compliance remain unattended. So over after at the end of 3 months, I came to know, oh, these compliances have overdue because compliance have late. So make a condition of your relieving form whether the compliances which are applicable to the concerned person have been transferred to the other employee or not. Unless and until that condition is not fulfilled, don't relieve your employee. Compliance tool can be also used as a tracker of various agreements or various SOPs or various internal policies before expiry formally terminate the agreement. There are a few value addition the system can make to your organization, of course, which we have discussed it, but I will just show you. It will help you to obtain a ISO certification of your business function. It will help you to borrow from the domestic international rates at an attractive rate. Believe me, in Jubilant, we borrowed at a very attractive rate of less than 5% from the International Finance Corporation, USA, whereas they in fact audited our system. So they help that system helped us to borrow at an attractive rate. And same way, we got an ISO 14001 9001 responsible care certification program and from the ACC, American Chemistry Council, and they reviewed our system very thoroughly, and it was one of the part of their ISO certification. It attracts your private equity investors or the domestic international to invest in your business. It will help you to reduce your legal risk and cost because it is an automation, and I have told you what are the advantages. It strengthens your corporate governance. You will, I have already explained you in the MDA, and it is a part of the corporate governance also that your systems and processes are working adequately and effectively. It increases your business reputations. And last but not the least, it protects your company and directors and officers from the potential civil and criminal liability and the reputation loss or suspension of business and operations. Thank you very much, friends. This is all from my side.
Thank you, Amit. That was really a good presentation. You can unshare your screen. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I think, Amit, all that you spoke comes from years and years of experience.
Yes.
Let me admit that what you are bringing up the points are the, one is that, okay, high level, statement that, okay, why compliance is, what compliance is, that of course you took in the beginning, but the fine granular points that you brought out, that can only come with experience. So I think kudos to you, Amit. Thank you for sharing your experience.
And for which we already had a great, we have broke our heads in Jubilant actually.
Yes. And one thing I noted in your last slide is that you said because of this compliance system, you could borrow at better interest rates. Had I known this in those days, we would have increased our prices, isn't it? So, give us some compensation.
No, in fact, for ICC, for responsible care 14001 9001, let me admit you, I got a CEO award also, because we got a Jubilant is one of the few companies in the country which has got this American Chemistry Council award. So this is the ISO certification I just mentioned.
Thank you, and we feel really proud, Amit, that Complinity could add value even in a small way.
Yes.
That so really, and one of our other clients also was once mentioning that they got the Chairman's Award in a very large company. They got a Chairman's Award after implementing this entire compliance management system. Okay, so happy to note these things. Amit, we'll give you a voice rest for 2 minutes before we jump on to a few questions. Some interesting questions are occurring. Sanad, if I may ask my team to just showcase a 1 minute sort of presentation on Complinity before we jump onto the Q&A.
Welcome to Complinity Technologies. Complinity is India's leading governance, risk and compliance software helping companies to manage their compliance, contracts, litigation, legal updates, inter-financial controls and more. Complinity is a one-stop shop for all GRC needs. With our proprietary 12 GRC modules and real-time legal updates on 2,000 plus laws and 24,000 plus compliances. All in an integrated platform that is easy to use with automated alerts and risk management capabilities. Is why compliance managers, general counsels and chief financial officers choose Complinity every time. Join the most innovative and prestigious brands that use Complinity. Automating your compliance management. Request a demo at complinity.com.
All right, thank you. That was I would say, short commercial break. Amit, I also saw your dashboard screen. I'm inclined to, spend 10 seconds on showing an actual dashboard.
Yes.
I think it'll be good for, it'll be good for people to see that. Give me a second. Yes. Because one is, describing a dashboard, the other is looking at a dashboard. Yes. So friends, this is the Complinity sample dashboard screen. What Amit was talking about dashboards. You see a lot of non-compliances being flagged in red, late closures being flagged in amber, on-time compliances being flagged in green, compliances which are due in the current month being flagged in yellow, none here. And this is maker checker, what Amit was talking about, pending approval. So you see a compliance calendar date-wise, where if you mouse over, it shows you on 10th of that month, what is the status, 13th. And if you click, it will give you the status of which are these 9. And you see year-wise non-compliances. You see red, amber, greens here, for that month. You see high, medium, low, what Amit was again talking about, high severity, medium severity. So you probably are managing directors or CEOs would be concerned about what is the high severity non-compliances, because this is where the imprisonments or cancellations or penalties above a particular threshold. And Amit, I also caught your word called materially complied with. There's a story behind it. I'll share in a second. So again, department-wise, red, amber, green. How is the HR faring, finance faring, secretarial faring? State-wise, if you got multiple locations in states, location-wise, entity-wise, if you got different legal entities, owner-wise, manager-wise, and here you have the whole data. For example, owner, manager, which act, which compliance. So you have SEBI checklist, you have Factories Act, FEMA, you have income tax. You can also add internal compliances, even payment of electricity bill by the 7th of any month by finance, or payment of lease rentals, or STP, telephone, broadband, GSTs, environment, CGST, petroleum, all industry specific laws which are applicable to your industries, everything downloadable as dashboards, Excel, printable, mailable, host of other things. And then the whole data being filterable. Here, you can filter on so many parameters, factors, and this is just one module. Similarly, we have contract, assessments, registrations, documents, tasks, secretarial, audit, litigation. It's a full GRC suite, if I may say so. This is just to give you a flavor of what a governance, risk, and compliance system can be. One is SAP, Oracle, Tally have been riding the finance systems wave, accounting systems. Similarly, Great HR and other good companies have been riding the payroll software or HRMS wave. Similarly, Zoho and Salesforce and other companies have been riding the CRM wave, customer relationship management wave. I think this is a new wave for compliance professionals, for people like you and me, called governance, risk management, and compliance, where we have to evangelize compliance. Now, one may ask that, why software? I mean, large companies have existed. They've become 1,000 crore companies even without this software. So what suddenly has transpired? What is the need now? And to that, my 1 minute point would be that earlier laws used to change once in 5 years, once in 10 years. Now laws are changing every single month. You would have seen the notifications, circulars, etc. Earlier the penalties were 100 rupee, 500 rupee. Now you see the penalties, 1 lakh, 5 lakh, 1 crore imprisonments. Earlier, even a lot of you may have stood in the lines of the ministries or the government departments to furnish those forms, right? Now everything, even the governments are moving online. The whole world is moving online. Earlier, even the broadband, used to take a lot of time to connect, and you used to see internet. We are from those days where it may look historical, but broadband itself was a luxury. But now we have 4Gs and 5Gs and in technology penetration, cloud penetration, etc., etc. I think making way for these softwares, because it's not that professionals are being replaced. It's just that the monotonous work that is being done, the Excel sheets and emails and data management on server, is being replaced in a modern way through the compliance softwares, plus real-time legal updates being shared. So imagine you are 1 or 2 or 3 people in your department, say in the secretarial department, or maybe 5 people. But imagine a team of 100 people behind, as far as we are concerned, for example, Complinity, looking at the laws and the circulars and the notifications and giving that on a daily basis to you as your extended compliance team. That, of course, add a lot of value. Now, my question to you, Amit, here is that, is compliance management system only for large companies, or is it for small companies? So where would you draw the line? What kind of companies this is best suited for? Listed or even below that, or how would you just define that?
No, as you asked, even compliance management for non-listed companies is also equally important, as good as for the listed companies. But at least I would recommend for a medium size, even for a medium sized company of say 1,000 crores and above or turnover and above, at least legal compliance management system should be there. And more particularly, the companies which are subjected to the secretarial audit, I should recommend that company should go, because ultimately it is going to add value to your organization, which I mentioned in my last slide, attracting of the investors, attracting of the borrowings. Even many companies, as you, Sumit, I mentioned that before making an investment, suppose you are looking for a private equity investment and you're in an unlisted company. Certainly, if you have this kind of a system and process in place, you enjoy a competitive edge over the other persons who don't have that system.
Right, surely. Amit, of course, 1,000 crore plus companies and listed companies, it's a must have. In our experience, I would also go ahead and say that, we have a lot of clients. Of course, we have a lot of listed company and 1,000 crore company clients, but even 100 to 500 crore top line companies are also now adopting it very, very fast, because gone are the days, Amit, where the software used to be very, very expensive, 5 lakh, 10 lakh, 15 lakh. Now with the cloud giving you a subscription based pricing, software starts with 10,000 per month, 15,000 per month, which even 100 crore company can easily afford, provided we can show the value to the management that what kind of value. So Amit, my next question is on the value. Yes, you were saying something else.
You can also supplement it, like suppose there may be a company which has a 500 crore turnover, but it has a single office. Right. There is a company which has a 200 crore turnover, but it has a 10 factories. So I would definitely recommend for a 200 crore company which has a 10 factories, because it will add value to that company.
Right. No, even I would go ahead and say, even if you got one factory, one warehouse, one corporate office, one registered office, even if you got say 200 compliances or 300 compliances in a year, even if you may go with a 3-user license or a 5-user license, still adds value, because let compliance be the last thing that your promoter has to worry. Let things be green, and or else if there is any red, it be highlighted, there and there. That's the value that we can take. Okay, Amit, how to sell this to the managements internally? Like if I was the compliance officer in a company, say it's a 500 crore company, how do I go to my management and say that this is important? What is a key selling point internally?
Certainly, one of the key selling point is updation of law, which you yourself has mentioned. There were the days, even a company today of 10,000 crore of company which has survived on a traditional Excel based or word based tool. But now you have to show the value addition. You have to show management system certifications. You have to show that this is an investment which I can bring in if provided I have this kind of a software. And at the last but not the least, the potential risk, and you have to make them study the laws, procedures, where this law is talking about the systems, processes, and adequacy of systems. You have to all bring in all together role of the risk management committee, because gone are those days where just, even if you say it is an Excel based system, it is a system. Today, if you ask me personally, it is no system at all. System, you have to define a system. What is a system? There is a flow of information. There is a manner of mechanism of flow of information.
Right. No, I think I picked up from your conversation or from your talk that while businesses go for sort of growth and their business objectives, but compliance ensures sustainability. So I picked up the word sustainability. So I think sustainable growth is very, very important, because if you're not complying, you won't be sustainable as a business. So I think that's where we have to go. Okay. Now, one question in the, which has come up is, what are some key factors to consider while shortlisting a compliance tool vendor from a long list of them? Or is cost the only important factor?
No, I would not say only cost. First, if you remember in my slide, I mentioned, suppose which industry you belong to. Suppose you are from a pharma industry, and vendors which you are shortlisting, is the vendor has a pharma client or not? That is one important factor. Now, the second important factor is at what periodicity your laws are updated. Which vendor? Some vendor gives on a quarterly basis, some vendor gives on a monthly basis. So I would go for a monthly basis, because Sumit, as you yourself mentioned, laws are changing very rapidly. Third, the feedback of the clients. That is very, very important. Even I know, I don't want to name it, there are big fours in the market, but the feedback is not really good. And there are tier B software providers whose feedback is very, very good actually. So you have to see whether the system provider is really supporting, doing good hand holding with you or not. And last but not the least, whether your systems provider understand your pain or not. The way you understand our pain in jubilant days, and you know what kind of R&D we did, how much modification we did without not even an extra cost. So these are the couple of factors which one must look into before deciding the list of vendors.
Right. No, I echo that software is not just you sell it and then you disappear. Yes. Software is a relationship, just like a consulting relationship, where you have to be there to support, You have to be there to sort of customize when required, etc.
Yes.
To be able to really give a good service and to ensure the customer success, so that your objectives are achieved, in your organization.
And as you, sorry, I missed one point, customization as per the client's requirement.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, good. So there have been some questions in the chat box as well. Somebody is asking, does it support ISMS 27001 or 27000 as a software? Let me answer that.
You can answer that.
Yeah. So basically, as you have seen, there are some internal compliances which can be put into the tool. So if you have got an ISO or ISMS checklist, if suppose there are 30 things to be done by 15 people or 20 people at some frequency, something needs to be generated, certified, report, met, etc. You can create all those checklists as an internal compliance, put it into the tool, say who is responsible, owner, manager, escalation, etc., and set up. So of course we help companies include all their internal compliances, provided the checklist is given by the company. There's another thing, can we set different alarm days for different activity, as some activity may take longer time? Of course.
It can be done.
It can be done. You put up a 7 days alarm or a 30-day alarm, or if there's a critical registration, say Factories Act registration, you can predate it by 3 months, 6 months. So all those configurations can be done.
It is at the time of finalization of the checklist. You have to analyze the number of days.
Absolutely. Does it help in MCA compliance? See, it's a very $1 million question, I would say. Can this compliance tool replace compliance professionals? Can it replace company secretaries, lawyers, or chartered accountants to do the compliance? Amit, I know the answer, but I would want you to address.
No, absolutely, it cannot. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what you get from the dashboard, which you have just explained it, not complied, complied. Now, whether actually not complied is really not complied, who is going to answer this question? It is only the compliance professional or the company. Or whether actually it is complied, but actually it is not complied, who is going to answer this question? It's a compliance company. As you know, Sumit, there is one role of some tool provider, some software providers, they provide a role of auditor.
Right.
Auditor is like other than maker and checker. Now, what is his role? His role is to see religiously whether who is reporting what and whether it has been correctly reported or not. So according to me, big no, it cannot replace the compliance professional.
Surely. No, and
my answer is it creates a position for a compliance professional.
Right. Of course, if the mundane tasks are taken care of through the tool, one can focus on higher level, higher order things that one doesn't have to mail, look for legal updates, do not maintain the Excel. All these things are done by the software and getting the real-time legal updates. So one then can move up the value chain, advise the managements, give them dashboards, give them reports, put them in the controls committee, audit committee. That's where we can add value. Surely. Let us. There's a couple of more very, very interesting questions and conclusions to be drawn. Let me just quickly launch the poll. There was just there's a poll which I forgot in the middle. Do you use any compliance software in your organization? So we asked that in the chat box, but this will give a very objective view of how many of you use it or not. And secondly, would you like to have a demo of Complinity compliance software, indicating that how many of us are ready for this category of softwares? Because Amit, what I feel is that while people are answering, I feel we all as compliance professionals need to evangelize this category called compliance software for our own profession, because we have to advise our managements why compliance softwares really add great value.
Yeah, I'll just share with you my experience, Sumit. That I feel, because of course a lot of company secretary must be attending. It is right. In some of the companies, it is the company secretary who is looking after as an administrator, or in some companies it is the finance. And most of the companies I find from the finance, they are just downloading the data, what are compliant, what is not. Nobody is going into the deep review or the religiously what actually is there. So it is the company secretary who is the best suited professional for do this kind of. So this is one kind of a role which can be created in a sectoral department at a compliance professional. And it is the company secretary who is the best person who can, because believe me, I have studied a Gujarat Lift Factory Act. Can you imagine?
Right.
Same way, and the value which I have already told you, and even with this kind of compliance checklist which are uploaded, Many new things came in the Jubilant way, like imposing the writing the name of some officers under the Information Technology Act on the website of the company. It has to be reported. Nobody was aware. So you asked one question: what is the selling point to the management that whether we should go for the software or not? So this kind of value addition, the software can make it, and it is a company secretary only in the organization, provided if he gets a support from the organization, one dedicated person. In addition to his pure secretarial role, he can create a one compliance professional role also within the secretarial department, and which is really slowly inching towards the legal domain of the organization.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, okay, I'll end the poll and I'll share the results. So, roughly 70% people say they don't use the compliance, or they haven't used the compliance software, and 65% says yes, they would like to see the Complinity as well.
All the best, Sumit.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm happy with the results. People are inclined. Okay, one question come up: with different companies located worldwide under one ownership, can they manage compliance with a single license? Yes, of course, yes. It's all about licensing. It could be different locations, different entities, different geographies, different users. So everything is license driven. Even global compliances can be mapped into the tools and monitored, of course, with one single. If you got multiple.
In fact, Sumit, it is good you touched about the global compliances. I missed that part.
Right.
I'm happy that you touched this part.
Yeah, surely. Now we've got many clients like Razorpay and many more clients who are using it not only for the Indian company, but for global holding and subsidiary companies, wholly owned subsidiaries abroad, etc., etc. All right. Okay. So last question, Amit. I think the concluding question is: compliance management bottoms up or top down? Does the action start with the lowest level user in an organization, or we need to have the CEO and the MD to be buy-in and then the action starts? So is it top down or is it bottoms up?
So I would say it's a one step from the top down and one step from the bottom down. But certainly the approach flows from the top down approach. In Jubilant, it was purely top down approach. Clear mandate from the CEOs. No compromise on the compliance. No compromise even on reporting of the compliance. Amit is a party to one discussion which happened with our CEO. He said, if in the system there is an overdue compliance, whether you have even done it on the ground, for me, it is as good as non-compliance. So it is a top-down approach, but certainly you have to sell the idea to the management that yes, sir, there is a tool which value addition can make it, and then it will start flowing from the top-down approach.
Sure, I can't agree with you more, Amit. In some of our other client meetings as well, I remember one president of a 20,000 crore electronics company. He called all his 50 plus HODs in a large boardroom, and then he delivered a 10-minute talk saying, guys, this is important and why compliance is important. Imagine if the CEO and MD calls all his HODs, including few expats, in the room and say this is important. The same message percolates down from the HODs to the general managers, from general managers to deputy managers, etc., etc. And it makes a lot of difference.
Same message was conveyed in one of our Monday review meeting where Amit was a party to that. Amit Saini has attended that meeting, and it was a clear message from our CEO, business CEO. No compromise on the tool or no compromise on reporting in the tool, and that too correct reporting. Not only just for the heck of reporting, correct report.
Right. Now, I think that also you touched a very important point. Is it a tick box reporting in the tool when you have a lot of compliances? Is it a checklist based tick box reporting, or is compliance really followed in spirit by using these tools?
No, it is certainly followed in spirit, and at times, and let me tell you, I share one example. People honestly report the compliance, which was a non-compliance. They have reported it, and they were not aware about the ramification or the implication of the non-compliance. So it is not just tick box. You open the compliance page report. I give an example. Contract workers, they have to pay when they work overtime, double the ordinary rate of the wages.
Right.
And he genuinely mentioned no contract workers are paid single rate of wages actually.
Right.
So it is not a just tick box. It is actual genuine reporting, and people should understand the sanctity of it and do the honest reporting.
Absolutely.
That is why I raised that if any non-compliance is there, map the functional net, so that even if you have to report some non-compliance, it has to be reported in a very manageable way, because sometimes the regulator comes to your offices and they grab your laptop and they wanted to see your compliance management. It has happened in one of our factory at Gajraula. The factory inspector came and he said, show me your compliance tool. Show me how many non-compliances are there.
Wow.
Even if there is a non-compliance, it has to be reported in such a way that it looks like on the system, at least, that it is complied, but there is a honest disclosure in the remarks case. This is what we are doing.
So we must get that factory inspector onto the webinar, to evangelize compliance, because this is important from the regulator if they are acknowledging these compliance office. And also,
he asked for the data. He said, show me your compliance tool.
Right. No, amazing. And when people put compliance certificates onto their board meetings or audit committee meetings, imagine if behind the certificate, these are the systems and processes and checklists and different people across different locations submitting complied, submitting the attachments, proofs, automatic reminders, escalations, data management. I think it's a different ball game if these systems exist, rather than just a theoretical one page saying I'm complying with all the laws. That's a tick in the box, I would say.
It gives a great comfort to the audit committee and the risk management committee members also.
Right. For the larger organizations, investors for mid-size, venture capital investors, private equity investors, any company having, more than just the promoter shareholders, it gives a lot of, confidence to them, to the lenders, the whole community, I would say, at large. All right. I think with this, we reach an end of the webinar. Amit, thank you very much for a great talk. And I enjoyed the conversations with you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the presentation. Friends, this recording of this webinar will now very soon be put up on YouTube. So my team has already shared in the chat boxes the link of the YouTube channel and the LinkedIn channel. Just scroll up the chat box. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click on the double bell icon so that the moment the webinars is uploaded, you will be able to get it. By the way, we held a POSH webinar, prevention of sexual harassment, also a few weeks back. Due to a technical glitch, we haven't been able to upload it, but we will be uploading it very soon now. The POSH webinar, as well as this webinar, and we'll be conducting more such webinars every month now. Very interesting webinar we are planning on Competition Amendment Act next month. We'll be sending invites, etc., and we'll be inviting speakers from different walks of profession to deliver a talk on these webinars. All right, friends, and people who said they would be interested to look at the demo, please click at the link here. My team has shared it, or else you can go to Complinity, just search for Complinity, register for a demo, and my team will get your details and they'll be able to contact you. All right, with this, thanks to my team for putting this all together on the technical side, and thank you, Amit. And
thank you, Complinity team. Thank you, Sumit, and thanks to all my friends who are part of for listening patient.
All right, thank you. Bye, Amit.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Welcome to Complinity Technologies. Complinity is India's leading governance, risk and compliance software helping companies to manage their compliance, contracts, litigation, legal updates, inter-financial controls and more. Complinity is a one-stop shop for all GRC needs. With our proprietary 12 GRC modules and real-time legal updates on 2,000+ laws and 24,000+ compliances. All in an integrated platform that is easy to use with automated alerts and risk management capabilities. Is why compliance managers, general counsels and chief financial officers choose Complinity every time. Join the most innovative and prestigious brands that use Complinity. Automating your compliance management, request a demo at complinity.com.